Welcome back, friends. Today, Sarah and I are discussing nominalism. We brought that word up in passing in the last set of episodes, and we thought it'd be worthwhile to define. And so here comes the part that's relevant, I think, to this conversation. I usually do, I try to do due diligence and getting my citations, so forth. I'm quoting from Shakespeare. The subtitle is the title, with the subtitle being Nominalism, a rose by any other name would still smell sweet. And I hadn't actually verified that Shakespeare said that, and if that was the exact form, because we're going to kind of, if you will, go to contra to that point. And as I was committing the sin of Wikipedia,
yes,
it's a very interesting. This is a typical Shakespearean. It looks like he is agreeing with a nominalistic position,
right?
But when set within the play itself and what the ideas are conveying, he is not a novelist. It's saying that if he were not a Montague, he would be able to, it's from Romeo and Juliet, would be able to marry. And so his name matters to their ability to do things. So I have that in the show notes for you all to kind of look at if you care to do so. Do you want me to go with definitions, Sarah?
Yeah, I think insofar as I think it does, do you have a standard scholastic definition for nominalism? I do think that a rose by any other name would still smell as sweet, that something is what it is, right? So, but I think it would be helpful to if you have just that generic definition, that would be helpful.
I do. And we're going to be looking at two. One's a definition of truth, and the other is Aristotle's definition of nature. Nature, physics is his book. That's the Greek word for nature. So truth we're defining as the correspondence of the mind to reality. That what we see in our mind really does correspond to an objective reality. That's truth. The second thing, so a definition of words, what is a definition? Those are words that express precisely what a thing is. Because we're going now to nominalism. Nature. So that's what nominalists will say, that there really isn't such a thing as a nature or a form.
Right.
So Aristotle defines nature. Nature is a cause of being moved and of being at rest, in that to which it belongs primarily in virtue of itself and not in virtue of a concomitant attribute.
Right.
The form, so coming straight from that definition, the form indeed is nature rather than the matter. For a thing is more properly said to be what it is when it has attained to fulfillment than when it exists potentially. Thank you, potentially. And that's from chapter 3 in physics. So the nature of a thing, that is, for example, we could use a rose, since we're going to go down the rose thing. It is the shape of the thing. It's the thing.
Right.
The Greek word would be morphe. It's the shape. Like in metamorphosis, we change our shape. Morphe, it is the thing. Nature is those things that have matter. So nature does have a matter,
Right.
but nature is not the same thing as matter,
Right.
but is always found with matter. We would not say exactly that angels have a nature
Right.
because they do not have matter. Nature of something is what what allows it to do what it does. But it isn't properly the thing of itself. Why? Because matter is the ability to be this something or that something. So you can move your, a rose. A rose can be yellow. A rose can be red. A rose can have thorns. A rose cannot have thorns.
Right.
We all know roses that have smells, and
Right.
roses don't have smells. And we would still, at the end of the day, say that is a rose.
Right, as opposed to being anything other.
That's correct. As
Not
opposed
a daisy.
That's right. That's right.
Right.
So when we're talking about form and matter in the first and most general sense, form of something, we are just asking, what does it look like, or what kind of thing is it? Is it a rose, or is it a chair, or is it a human being? Is it a person? And as we proceed in our study of the thing in question, we may come to use form to mean, so now we're talking, getting back to Aristotle,
Right.
the cause of the unity of that thing.
Right.
So the form causes that thing to have this unified, not property. A property would be more like red or
Right.
smell or that sort of thing, but it's a unifying.
I think they just call it thingness, Karen.
Thingness.
I mean, they're we have never found an actual word. It's, I don't know if we say essence at that point. Maybe essence could be also used at that point, but it being what it is, the unity that causes it to be itself and nothing other.
That is correct. That is what makes a squirrel and not a robin.
Right.
We would say it would be the form of a squirrel.
Right.
That form is what makes that thing be a squirrel.
Right.
With respect to matter, I have an equivalent, but it's an equivalent in terms of language. The Greeks would think of the matter as the lumber, the zulia or xylia, the lumber. That's the stuff. And the stuff of something can be any number of things. It's the form that makes that particular stuff be
Right.
what it is.
Right.
Right. What is helpful about a word, so now back to nominalism. What is helpful about word, as general as that, it reminds us we're talking about the matter of something. It's what upholds that thing in being, but at the very same time is radically able to hold something else in being. And so for the human person, the soul is the form for the body. So my body has this composition to match my soul. My soul ordered, as it were, the differences of composition to express my soul. So to the soul, it's that which answers the question, what is the cause of life in the living thing? And that would be the soul. So the soul, the human soul, is more complicated than an animal soul because the human beings have intellect and will. But it is the very same feature of human life, the more exalted the soul, because it allows each of us to live and to be what we are, which is human beings and not animals.
Right.
And then finally, since I brought up body and soul, some would suggest, well, Paul in 1 Thessalonians talks about a tripartite consideration of the human person, body, soul, and spirit. And so the distinction between an animal, so if we say soul is that life force within a bios, then you could say, okay, an animal soul and a human soul is the same in that particular setting, because now we're talking about that the intellect and will aspect of humanity is from the spirit. But when when we're here talking theology, body and form, matter and form, that sort of thing. The form we're talking about is the human spirit, and the body. So instead of the word soul, sometimes soul is used in different ways. So I just want to get that clear.
Right. Yes, obviously to know that man is recognized as an animal because there are properties that he does share with other forms that have similar characteristics, and so we lump them together with animal as opposed to plant or mineral, right? But we also recognize that inside of in the structure of the form of animal, we're going to also be able to break those animals up into different structures. So we can thereby recognize that the robin is different from the squirrel is different from the cat, but we also recognize that there is a radical difference even between all of those things and man. And that is what Paul is able to articulate with the word spirit, because it's the hierarchy of the animal within matter and form. We're just breaking it down further.
Thank you. That is exactly right. So then we see that nature, going back to Aristotle, the first definition at the beginning, it's this movement within the matter. So it's the cause of being moved, or it's the cause of this thing being at rest, and it belongs primarily in virtue of itself. So it's because of that essence or that thing, and not by virtue of a concomitant attribute such as yellow, long hair, or sharp nails. Though, nobody is saying that that's not part of the definition of a rose. A rose, right? But if you look, the biologist itself starts to become more and more and more particular, trying to articulate what we are here calling a form.
Right. Yes, I mean, because the intention in regards to that is to become as specific as one is able, right? I mean, when you're trying to name an individual, it is the uniqueness that matters profoundly, whereas when you are trying to identify a species, you're looking actually for its opposite, the things that make it more similar, right?
That's right. All right. I look up, I see we are at the stopping point to the next episode. To the next time, my friend. Fides et Ratio.